Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Suggett, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Road Safety Professionals, or CARS. And I'd like to welcome you today to a webinar called E.R.A.S.E, Innovative Police and Municipal Strategy for Dealing with Car Meets, or as other people call them, car rallies. And I'm joined here by Todd Snooks, who's a police officer with York Regional Police. And I will introduce him in a minute. But first, I just wanted to say a little bit about CARS and these webinars. We have a series of monthly webinars that we make available to our members, as well as people. Non-members can pay a $50 fee to attend as well. And this gives you access to not only the live webinar itself, but also to the recording, which is posted shortly after it takes place. And just so you're aware, after a month that recording has been there, we do then open it up to the public. The public can view it at that point. But for the first month, it's only accessible to CARS members and to those who paid the $50 fee. And I would like to also tell you about an upcoming webinar that we have. It is called Centering Disability in the Design and Implementation of Cycling Infrastructure. It's with Ron Buehling, and it's going to be on May 23rd. It is currently posted on our website, and we will be starting to advertise that very soon. Now for a couple of housekeeping items. So we do entertain questions, but we do so at the end of the webinar. And we ask that you post them using the Q&A function, which is in the bottom of your screen around the middle. But you can post them at any time, but we will just answer them at the end. Also, I wanted to make you aware that we do have a post-webinar survey that we will pop up automatically, and we also send it out the day after. And in this survey, we're just gathering information on how you like today's webinar, if there's any ideas or topics for future webinars. And I want to make you aware that you could also win a $25 Tim's gift card. So that's another added incentive for you to fill out that form. So without further ado, I will now introduce you to today's speaker. So Constable Todd Snooks started his policing career with Peel Regional Police in April of '97, before transferring to York Regional Police in April of '99, where he continues to serve. He has been engaged in many areas of policing throughout his career, including uniform frontline duties, forensics, coordinator of York Region Crime Stoppers Program, the York Regional Police Underwater Recovery Unit Dive Supervisor, Youth Coordinator, OPP for a three-year term in VICLIS, which stands for Violent Crime Linkage Analysis System, and is a serial crime behavior analyst. And he also has, he became the Road Safety Bureau's Programs and Partnerships Coordinator. In his role, he has created new partnerships with leading organizations in road safety, which led him to join CARS. And he's actually one of our board members. And so we're very glad to have him. He sits on actually 13 road safety committees that include partners such as York Region and its 9 municipalities, CAA, MTO, York Region School Boards, Metrolinx, Public Health, Arrive Alive, and the list goes on. So he is definitely qualified. And thank you so much, Todd, for being with us today. And I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen here and get this up and running. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Okay. Is that showing, Brenda?
No, it's not.
Okay. I'm going to. How about now?
It is now.
Okay. Perfect.
You're good.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Unauthorized car rallies are disruptive to citizens, quality of life and pose a significant risk to the community. These events often come with excessive noise, speeding, stunt driving, and blocking or impeding motor or pedestrian traffic. Illegal car rallies typically involve people gathering with their modified vehicles to do stunts, taking over private property like parking lots. These events do not have a permit or permission from the local municipality to take place. And so what we know, what we can do, and how we can do it safely is what today's aspect is all about as far as the webinar. So we're going to cover a number of topics today. We're going to look at the vehicle culture itself. We're going to look at safety and strategy from a policing perspective. And we're going to look at the technology that is utilized, criminal code versus HTA, and the new bylaws, which is a game changer for us here in York Region with the City of Vaughan specifically, which we suspect will go across York Region and probably province-wide in time. So, and then we'll have a Q&A for any questions that you come up with. And in order to get through all of the material, obviously, as Brenda mentioned, we are going to wait till the end for the Q&A. If you have any questions, just keep them in mind or throw them right into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Sorry. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button next to the chat button. So if you can put it into the Q&A and not the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. And Brenda will facilitate the questions following this. Okay. So speaking about vehicle cultures, a common denominator for this, I've put it into 3 R's. The culture really revolves around risk, rush, and recognition. I will note right off the top, though, as a precursor, not all car rallies are problematic, and not all car enthusiasts cause road safety issues and concerns. So as we go through this, and we, especially when we delve into the City of Vaughan bylaw changes and in and around car rallies, you can still get a permit for a car rally, but that is the point. You need to have a permit. And then, of course, if anything occurs during the time frame of that rally, the permit is null and void. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Sliding and takeovers. So we're going to touch base on that in a minute on a couple slides down, as well as the race and runs, as well as what a park and chill, and then car rallies themselves. So these are different cultures within modified vehicles and car enthusiasts. So sliding and takeovers, we'll see if our video plays here. There is no sound of the video on purpose. So just what you're viewing right now on the screen is a blue vehicle there in the middle of the screen around that post. You can see the tire marks that he's been driving around that post. This is Canada's Wonderland's parking lot in the City of Vaughan. This is at a permitted event that was taking place where illegal activity was then happening. So you'll see a couple of things here that we can discuss further if there's any questions at the end as well. So I'll give a little bit of so you can see one officer there to the right of the vehicle. So he's finished doing his stunting that he was doing. And now they're going to do a takedown. And the only reason they entered into this location was because of the safety concerns. The interesting aspect that you'll find with this and with this culture is social media. And you can see very quickly how fast what we call swarming occurs. So the officers are now dealing with it, and watch as you see all the spectators from that car meet, or the car rally, which is actually further away in the parking lot, and how fast they come around to film everything. And they just keep coming. So that's just an example. And okay, this is an individual who's now being arrested, obviously, for the dangerous driving and stunting on private property. So this sliding and takeovers is one common type of event. It's a group of select drivers. They'll complete donuts or sliding, what they call slides, in a parking lot or in the middle of an intersection, usually around a group of people filming the event, as I mentioned. An intersection takeover involves usually hundreds of observers and dozens of vehicles to block off the entire intersection. And we're not talking, your rural roads. We're talking major city intersections. So they block them to the public so that the designated sliders can then conduct their dangerous stunts. In the video that I just showed, obviously, that was at the Canada's Wonderland. It was well over 500 cars in attendance at the permitted event, but then some individuals got a little bit crazy, and that's where I say we put it into those 3 R's. I like to call it the risk, the rush, and the recognition is what they're looking for in that culture. At this instance, we had officers staging at the north entrance to Wonderland, away from the crowd, near the exit of where they would be exiting. And unfortunately, they did have to go in based on the safety concerns for this one individual. All right, and that was a quick arrest with no other concerns afterwards. Races and runs. So these are a separate culture to that of takeovers and slides. A group of select drivers will compete in head-to-head races with starts and finish lines, usually in industrial areas, but sometimes they will take up a street as well. And usually it's, as you can see from the timeline in the darkness of the picture there, it's usually in the evening to nighttime, overnight. The area, again, usually industrial, will be either side of the line with observers. So continuous stream of runs will occur until we come in and break it up and change, and then they change their location, the ones that aren't interacting with or don't get interacted with police. Parks and chills. Large events, usually with no criminal offenses occurring. These are usually just what the title says. They're park and chill. They're just enthusiasts of vehicles that are showcasing their cars and what they've done with their modifications. Usually the vehicles themselves, the modifications are illegal. So we do deal with them from that standpoint. If they drive them out onto the road, then obviously we can deal with them from an HTA standpoint. Generally more of a crowd control or noise complaint issue for us. They take up large amounts of resources to disperse, but generally not a cause of safety issues due to the driving of the vehicles. Usually, again, because they're heavily modified. So even the movement of them, a lot of times, if there's a bump in the road or you have to go up, a little bit of an incline, they're scraping the bottom of their vehicles and whatnot. Their tires rub because of the style of vehicle and the angles that they're on. So they're not usually stunting in these vehicles. They're usually more of a concern from a standpoint of safety on the road. So more HTA based. And then we have car rallies. As you can see, just taking a look at the example of the pictures here, these are social media posts for these meets. You can see on the top left there, right under car rallies, that's a motorcycle meet. That's actually one that was just posted today and is happening first week of May. The one in the middle there called Boosted, Saturday season opener. You can see there the address at the bottom is the city of Vaughan, and that's for May 4th. We'll see a little bit about that in a few slides. So keep in mind that it's May 4th and it's the city of Vaughan. That was posted a number of weeks back, and we'll see in a few minutes what that looks like now. Operation Silent Night is this year's project that York Regional Police, along with its partners across the GTA, the other police services, are working on. And of course, the city of Vaughan. This is a very specific targeted area based on the new bylaws that are in place that we are working with the city directly on, and that'll come up in a few minutes as well within the presentation. So it's unauthorized car rallies because they are disruptive to the citizens. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're looking to deal with those. So there are special bylaws in place now and some significant charges. And I'm going to go through all of that with you in a few slides. Our first and foremost in anything that we do, obviously, safety and strategy. So bullet point number 2 there, maintaining a high visible presence. We do frequent patrols and static patrols to deter illegal street racing and activities and car rallies from actually starting up. Again, utilizing a systematic approach. So everything's organized prior to and of course, that comes from the use of our technology. So a number of things that happen prior to a car rally is we deal with understanding and knowing when they're going to happen. So social media, certainly maintaining a keen eye on what's happening, where it's happening, when it's happening. A lot of times the posts that are out there are for initial meet location, and then there's a disbursement as to, half an hour before as to where the new location will be. So things change on the fly, but we certainly will show up at an area where we know it's going to be occurring and deter it from happening altogether. ICC is our in-car camera systems within the vehicles that police drive. For those on the call, or on this webinar, I know there's obviously some officers listening from other jurisdictions in interest, as well as many others from different areas of road safety. We also have an RPA, which is your remotely piloted aircraft. This provides the ability to take in large gatherings and capture footage for follow-up investigation. A lot of times there's not a need, or it's unengaged at the moment in time, but we can certainly follow up afterwards with the intel that's collected through RPA as well as E.R.A.S.E. Obviously, E.R.A.S.E, our helicopter, provides safe following of vehicles, so no pursuits are required. This allows us to obviously follow a vehicle from start to finish, in a lot of cases with them not even realizing they're being followed, and then we're able to have officers following in a distance and cornering in at a residence or a location where they stop to deal with them. So the city of Vaughan, I think anybody that knows anything about these car rallies or has been listening to social media over the years, obviously the most recent years, they've been. You would have heard of all the happenings at Wasaga Beach and what was going on there. And so the city of Vaughan was starting to get frustrated, obviously, with what was occurring within its city limits. And so they took a little bit of a look at what OPP did with Wasaga Beach, and they came up with some very interesting ways of dealing with car rallies, and they implemented some very strong bylaws. Oops, sorry, I got my mouse in the wrong spot there. My apologies. So the amendments that they did to 2 areas, they did amendments to the special events bylaw, and they did amendments to their noise bylaw. So car rally prohibitions and additional powers were added, and in 4.17 gives YRP the power to enforce the bylaws, including issuing orders and laying administrative monetary penalties. So We also have YRP, the ability to order road closures and the ability to close a road for up to 3 days for investigation purposes. So these are all new bylaws that were put into place by the city of Vaughan that give police powers within their city limits. It also confirms that enforcement officers may require individuals to provide their name, address, and identification, and that enforcement officers are permitted to use that information in the course of investigation to enforce the bylaws. So whereas a bylaw officer can't necessarily go up to an individual driving a vehicle and ask for their identification, a police officer certainly can, and we can share that information with the city bylaw officers. So enforcement process, as it says here, 1, is this a car rally? Does the car rally have a permit? And charges laid on scene or after the fact. So as I mentioned earlier, obviously with our technology abilities that we have, a lot of our information can be obtained and we can deal with after the fact as far as laying charges and whatnot. So we'll go through that. So car rally means any formal or informal event or exhibition consisting of the gathering of motor vehicles. They made this extremely open. They didn't want to tighten in on this bylaw and the meaning of car rally, because technically 2 cars fall under this. Now, obviously, we're not going to be dealing with that level of scale, but it doesn't change from 5 cars, 20 cars, 50 cars, and what we're seeing over and over again, upwards of 500 plus cars at these events. So, and again, these events may include, but not limited to, takeovers, street contests, stunts, and all of those. So again, understanding what each of those items are. Street takeovers, simply as I mentioned right up early on with the culture aspect, taking over a portion of the highway, roadway, or a parking lot, blocking, impeding the regular flow of traffic to perform stunts and contests. So stunt means any activity where a person engages in any of the following. A lot of us understand stunt driving to be going more than 40 over in posted 70 or less areas, or going 50 over in 80 or more posted areas. Stunt is a lot more than that. I'm just going to read off a number of them, but it is an extensive list. Driving a motor vehicle in a manner that an intention to lift some or all of its tires from the surface of the ground. Driving a motor vehicle in a manner that indicates the intention to cause some or all of its tires to lose traction with the surface of the road. The intention to spin it or cause it to circle the vehicle. Driving 2 or more vehicles side by side. One of the vehicles occupying a lane of traffic, other portion of the highway intended for the use of oncoming traffic. Having a person in the trunk or on top of a vehicle is stunt driving. Driving a motor vehicle while the driver is not sitting in the driver's seat. Seems odd, but it happens. Again, that's stunting. Driving in a manner that any person operating a motor vehicle for the purpose of filming or recording activities of a street takeover contest or exhibition. Performing a burnout. So simply having your tires spin and having smoke coming up from behind. Performing a donut. Driving 2 or more motor vehicles at a high rate of speed from a marked departure. Chasing another motor vehicle. Jumping a green light. So if you make a left-hand turn on a green where it's not an advanced green, ahead of the traffic that has the right of way to come through, that's stunting. Repeatedly changing lanes with the intention of repeatedly changing lanes in the flow of traffic while driving at a high rate of speed that is marked departure from the lawful rate of speed. So again, a lot of other offenses within stunting that are deemed to be stunting. So it's not just the speed. Passenger, key definition for passenger, meaning a person inside or on any part of a motor vehicle that is not the driver in the driver's seat. Spectator, and this is an interesting one because a person will be a spectator if that person did not have direct knowledge of the fact that an event did not have a permit. So even if they didn't have direct knowledge, a person will still be a spectator. And that's been, if the permit has not been issued under the bylaw. The definition excludes members of the news media for news media purposes. So as the definition states here, any person who is present at a car rally is determined to be a spectator. And the interesting part for this for us is we're not just dealing now from a bylaw standpoint, we're not just dealing with the individuals who bring their cars to the rallies, we're also dealing with anyone who is a spectator. So there are penalties for all of them. And this is just an example of the simplicity of it, and yet the power behind the enforcement penalties of this. And these don't go into the court system. These are part of the E.R.A.S.E, and so they go through bylaw. So any person in having their motor vehicle at, sponsoring, collecting money for coordinating, advertising, hosting, or being a vendor at an unauthorized car rally, first penalty, $1,000, penalty for subsequent offenses, $2,000, and up to $10,000. Any person spectating, attending, riding as a passenger in a motor vehicle at an unauthorized car rally, first offense, $500. And subsequent offenses, $500. And that's just being a spectator. Any person emitting, causing, or permitting sound or noise from a car rally. Again, as I said at the beginning, they didn't just affect the one bylaw to do with permits, but they actually affected the noise bylaw as well, because that is a key factor to the complaints and the concerns from the neighbors and businesses around these car rallies. And that first offense is $1,000, subsequent offense is $2,000, and that's it's interesting too to make note that within the bylaw they also deemed the fact that when it comes to conviction on these, the less how to word this, the $1,000 fine, the lowest it can be put is $750. So they don't have an option to go any lower than that. So it's still a substantial ticket for the individual. Again, the maximum fine associated with participating in an unauthorized car rally does reach $10,000. The maximum fine associated with breaking the noise bylaw is $5,000. The city and YRP can issue the following administrative penalties. So they can do, as stated, these three that are on the screen. The other thing that is important to know here, with this combined effort and accessing the E.R.A.S.E program, it allows us to the tickets to be, as I said earlier, not just laid in person at the time, but they can be laid after the fact. And that would be done immediately after, but within 5 business days, those tickets will show up in the registered owners of the vehicle or the identified individual address. As I stated at the beginning, here's that updated as of 9:30 this morning. This was posted, and you can now see on May 4th the change of address as it says at the top, relocation, and the change of address is now in Toronto. It was very interesting when they first posted, or when we first did the media release in regards to Silent Night opera project Silent Night. Within an hour of that media event, we were seeing on social media RIP Vaughan and changing of locations left, right, and center for these events. So it already is working, and we haven't even laid an offense yet. So it's an amazing tool that the city of Vaughan has worked hard at. They've worked with us, and they've worked with business owners where these major problems were happening. There's a whole aspect of that and how they actually have created new bylaws where businesses with property sizes large enough for car meets to occur now have to put into place deterrents to the design of their entrances and exits and how they function their parking lots. So it was quite involved and ended up with some amazing results already without even having enforcement. But enforcement will be starting. The other interesting part of it is we will have access to the whole system here in YRP as far as the phones. Our phones will be able to utilize the bylaw system and be able to issue those tickets directly printed at the time. And again, as I said, they'll also be able to do them after the fact. So that, I believe, is the end at this point. I wanted to make sure I had lots of time for questions because I know there will likely be a number of questions on this. So hopefully that is the case and we can go from there. So I'm going to quickly put into, I think it's there actually. On the bottom of the screen right now is a link, and I'll throw it into the chat. I know you guys are supposed to be putting your questions into the Q&A, so I will throw that link also into the chat just so that you have it. And that gives you a lot of information. There we go. A lot of information. So Brenda, do we have any questions?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Todd. Very enlightening, interesting. It's great to hear that you are having success and that it is deterring them. So I applaud you and, the York region as well for working with you and the city of Vaughan. So I'll turn it over to questions now. I'm just looking at, we've got 3. So the first one is, do you know of any proactive means to reduce illegal events? Are there venues events where the behavior is permitted? I remember recalling you saying that you can get a permit for a car rally. So this person's wondering, why aren't they successful? Like, why don't people just go to the ones that got bylaws or got the permit, I mean?
So if I understand the question correctly, and it looks like it's 2 questions or 3 questions. So do you know of any proactive means to reduce illegal events? So again, I think in and of itself, the fact that the city of Vaughan has moved these bylaws and then just putting the information out there about the offenses and the cost to spectators and drivers attending them, it's already done proactive means because we're seeing cancellations in the city of Vaughan. So the proactiveness from a standpoint of enforcement comes from our use of the technology, our use of social media to be there at the location where we know they're going to be occurring before they get there. So that is the proactive aspect, and that's as proactive as you can be based on the fact that other than education, which again, not all car rallies are illegal and not all car enthusiasts are problematic to us. So you can have a gathering of vehicles for the right purpose and for the right reason and not have issues. But there are times when those ones in comes a smaller group of issues that they didn't necessarily invite, but they become problematic for us based on their behaviors. Are there venues, events where the behaviors are permitted? Well, no, if it's an illegal activity, it's an illegal activity. So as far as you can get a permit for a car rally through the city of Vaughan, other municipalities, you don't require one right now because it's not within their bylaws necessarily, or they haven't been getting them and they haven't been enforcing that fact. But here in the city of Vaughan now, you have that ability to get a permit, but should something occur at your rally, then your permit becomes void and we can enforce. If it's, we're still going to be aware of those permits and we'll be present and doing our proactive work of being present and having our presence with lights and making sure they know we're there so that they do behave and you don't have the problematic ones coming in. So that's where I would say they aren't successful when those problematic drivers come to their rallies, but it's not always the case. And like I said, there's a number of different types of car rallies. And as I said, the ones that are real car enthusiasts that go extreme with these modifications, they're not street worthy. And so we deal with them from a Highway Traffic Act standpoint. It's not necessarily criminal in nature, but they're not driving like, in unsafe manners, but the vehicles are unsafe to be on the road because of their design and modifications. So we deal with them in that manner. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, and I've learned something too, just from your explanation of that. So when you get a permit for a car rally, obviously you can't do any of those illegal behaviors, because once you do, then it goes into the other category. They're the ones that you need to enforce through your bylaws. But if they do get a permit and they are just displaying modifications to their vehicles or other aspects that aren't, falling into the category of being illegal, then they're good, kind of thing. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I've got another one here. So it's actually from our past president, Raheen, and he says, Hi, Todd, sorry. Do you have any stats in York Region or more generally on the prevalence of car rallies? Do you track the deaths, serious injuries that result from rallies stunting?
Yeah, so definitely stats are available. I can make those available to anyone that would like them. They can just send me a quick email and we'll have our analysts put those together for them. What exactly our analysts have, access to and whatnot, I am not the brains of that part of the material of the organization. So I am not an analyst from that standpoint. I'm a behavioral analyst. So I certainly will get as much information out to you as possible, Rahim or anyone else. So a great question. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And maybe what I could do as well is somehow post that information or a link with the webinar recording, so that way if anyone else is interested in it, we can give them access as well. That's great. Thanks. So Evelyn Vingilis, who has actually, I'll do a little plug for something that she recently presented back in February 2023 with a couple other researchers, patterns and changes in risk of motor vehicle casualties before and during the COVID pandemic, which touches on some of the areas of illegal activity and just how that increased over the pandemic. So little plug, that's on our website. So that's available to view, but she's obviously worked in this area doing research. So she had a question. Sorry, just let me bring it up again. Your bylaw, well, first of all, she said, great presentation. Thank you. Your bylaw, I presume, includes show and shines and classic car shows where old timers bring their classic cars, etc. So she just want to know if that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, this is the city of Vaughan, which is one of 9 municipalities in the region of York. So they are the first ones in York region, and certainly in most of southern Ontario. As I said, Wasaga Beach did put something into place last summer or the summer before last when they had the big issues up there. This is even stronger than what they had put into place up in that location for the time being. This is now a standing bylaws that will be utilized. So it is the city of Vaughan's bylaws. We help enforce them from a policing standpoint. So they're not YRP. They're not criminal based, although we'll go criminal from a standpoint of what's happening and dealing with that. But these are bylaws that are in place for these car rallies. So absolutely, you can have a show and shine. You'll have your classic car shows, as you mentioned there. Auto fest, things like that are legitimate, organized car rallies or car shows, for another word, and they're all permitted. Right. So they go to the city and they get them permitted, and they usually take up, in those cases, they quite often take up city property to function them. So, whether it be a park or, a park area that they utilize or whatnot for those. So, and some of them are standing where it's every Thursday. The old timers cars where you see the 1940s plus Studebagers and whatnot coming on and coming onto the property, and you'll see them throughout southern Ontario. They go around quite often. So, but those are all permitted events, yes, wherever they're taking place.
Okay, great. And I've got a comment here. So this person is worried about the demise of peaceful meets at coffee shops, which you just described. I'm wondering if has there been any fallout, I guess, or not fallout, but just people
no. Well, yeah. And if it's helpful, no, I mean, there's no demise to people meeting up with their vehicles and whatnot. It's the behavior thing, right? So it's not a matter of a demise to peaceful meets or car rallies. It's making sure, one, that if you're actually doing a car rally where you're inviting people and whatnot, that it's permitted for the city of Vaughan at this point. But as far as just, a small group of individuals meeting up and whatnot, and as long as they've, if their vehicles are modified to a point where they're unsafe or illegal, we'll deal with them that way for sure. But that's no different than before this. I mean, that's just standard procedure. If your car's unsafe on the road, it shouldn't be on the road. Nothing wrong with modifying your vehicle. Just don't drive it on the road if it's not roadworthy. So,
right.
So trailer to an event, right? A lot of these vehicles get trailered to events that are legitimate events. So no, coffee shop meetups are not going to be demised.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have another one here. It's from a constable, and he says, does the AMP system record history of the issued tickets to the driver to be able to distinguish if the penalty is a first-time offense or a subsequent? And I shouldn't say it's a he. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she, but
yeah, no, the AMP system. And again, this is a municipal government run. It's not a police system, but yes, it records all of that information.
Okay, perfect. Another comment, bringing together a community is important for mental health in many instances. So that's a good point. We definitely don't want to deter peaceful meetups. Another person says, what are other road safety strategies you think would support such enforcement measures if you take on this if you take this from a safe system approach or a Vision Zero point of view?
From an enforcement measure, so yes, the safe systems approach and Vision Zero. So certainly the safe systems approach here within our road safety strategy of York Regional Police, our 2023 to 2025 road safety strategy is highly utilizes the safe systems approach. The region of York has a Vision Zero traveler safety plan. I was in consultation with them over the 2 years of the development of that plan, which went before council and received a green light at the beginning of this year. I co-presented with the region on that. to council. So the approaches are built into how we do that safe and systematic delivery of enforcement. So it's all engaged within there. And some of it is again, the strategies and whatnot that we utilize. We're not going to give out in their fullness in a presentation. Obviously, we need to have an understanding that how we deal with certain things are done in a way that if you give it all the information, then it sort of mutes the point of utilizing them. So, but again, the technology that we have in place and that we have access to is making a huge difference for us in these approaches that are all built into our strategy and the region's plan.
Yeah, and from your description of your whole program, I mean, there's an education component too. It's not just about enforcement. Yep. And also your bylaws departments. It's not just police, it's the bylaws for the city that have gotten involved. So there's different departments, there's education as well as enforcement. So
yeah, and I would say in everything we do, education comes before enforcement. So having said that, when you're dealing with unsafe conditions, enforcement may come before education. But to the point of, if we go back to the question in regards or the concern about, losing out on peaceful meets at coffee shops, that simply would be us dealing with an education piece, unless there was something specifically dangerous happening or unsafe happening at that peaceful meetup. But otherwise, we may stop by there, have conversations with the individuals and just sort of do that education piece on, if their vehicles are close to being too much modified or whatever the case may be. So there's definitely that proactive step as well from an education piece.
I was curious in terms of the modifications that they do to these vehicles, whether in terms of vehicle licensing and registration, if they, those people monitoring, I guess, what's happening. I'm just wondering if that information and their roadworthiness and how, much more dangerous they are in terms of casualties. I don't know if there's a question in this. I'm just trying to think of, someone needs to monitor those cars basically. So,
well, and in essence, it comes to the registered owners.
Yeah.
They need to notify the MTO of any modification to any vehicle.
Okay.
Under the rules and regulations. So right. You change the color of your car, you need to notify the ministry that you've changed the color of your car, right? So if you modify something substantial on your vehicle, you need to notify the ministry of that substantial change. Do they? Well, no, not if they're going to be deemed it, not safe or illegal, right? So again, nothing wrong with modifying your vehicle, as long as it's still legal to be on the road. But you can modify your vehicle and transport it to an event where you're showing it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just see here. We've got another one. Since they are moving rallies to Toronto, is there discussions with other municipalities? This is a good one. To ensure or check that they follow similar bylaws. So, and also just communication, I imagine, between your different police departments.
I am going to say that I would be highly surprised if we didn't see this rolling out across Ontario. But it takes each individual municipality to put into place, because each individual municipality has its own bylaws and whatnot. So they all have to modify their or update or amend their bylaws to whatever works for them within their setting. So obviously, there are probably police services from across Ontario here, maybe closer to the GTA more likely, but they will see, as I mentioned, one this morning, changing their location from us to Toronto, from the city of Vaughan to south of the border of Steeles, right? So into
Mhm.
Toronto, you may see that happening going over to Peel. You may see them going over to Durham. They may go further north. They may simply jump from Vaughan to Markham, which is a new municipality within York Region still. So those individual municipalities, I would be highly surprised if they didn't start, especially having seen that this one is already working and we haven't even had an enforcement engaged enforcement thing since the announcement. So
Are there communication channels right now open between all your different municipalities that are in the GTA, if those are the ones possibly being affected more? Like, is there a way that you routinely kind of make each other aware? I just wondered if there's anything formal or whether it's
yeah,
just kind of more ad hoc.
I would say certainly based on the 13 committees that I sit on,
Okay.
this information gets around very quickly. We do a lot of sharing across the province, across Canada, but across the province, across certainly within York Region. All other 8 municipalities have certainly heard and know what the city of Vaughan has done. And I'm sure there's conversations happening in offices in the background right now there, as well as across the GTA. Yes.
Okay, great. And another person also mentioned or asked whether other regions in the GTA, and they also wondered if there could be some kind of provincial level law. I don't know how that would work, or but it would make it easier if it was just right at the provincial level, then each one wouldn't have to pass it themselves.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's a hard one to answer from a policing standpoint.
Yeah.
That is a government level question. Um, to do something on that level, that means uploading bylaws as opposed to downloading, which is, from the province down to municipalities and regions to function their own facilities and businesses and whatnot within.
Mhm.
Keep in mind, a lot of these locations aren't necessarily city property, but the permits required for the business that's going to allow it on the property, on their own property, right? So, and there are offenses to the businesses that allow these to occur within these bylaws. There's also offenses to the businesses that allow these illegal rallies to occur without permits. So,
Mhm. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And another person also asked if the municipalities know about Vaughan's efforts. You've already
Yes.
mentioned that. Um, Here's another question. Rather than outright prohibition, has any consideration been given to channeling these types of activities to appropriate facilities, such as motorsports parks, where they are regulated and conducted under safe circumstances?
Yep. So, I mean, I think what you're seeing there is the answer to that is the permits are that reality, right? So, the city will issue a permit for a legal car rally to take place within its city limits, as far as the city of Vaughan goes.
Mhm.
As far as motorsports parks and yeah, if you're talking about actually doing racing and having the ability to to take your car up to the speeds that it is built that it can do, even though it's not shouldn't do it on a highway or on a city street, those are available. Those are already in existence, right? And we encourage that. We encourage you to take your vehicles to a legitimate place for the purpose of speed and having fun in your vehicle on private property that you've signed off waivers on to even be there, for
Mhm.
whoever owns that property. So those facilities exist. There's not, just don't do it on our roads.
And you've mentioned before too the whole 3 R's: risk, rush, recognition. Like, I'm wondering if there's an aspect of this, the fact that it is illegal
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing it secretively, and that's probably part of the whole rush and the whole
Part of the
sort of.
part of a culture for
Yeah,
sure. And
yeah, I
again,
would,
it's a small percentage
yeah.
of car enthusiasts that have that. three R's as part of their makeup, for lack of better wording.
Okay. And I think we've got just one more question here. And it's actually kind of building on to a question I had earlier about the modifications to cars. So this person says, how are you dealing with vehicles that have extreme power modifications, blowers, aftermarket turbos, nitros? Wow, this person really knows. Nitros, oxides at these meets. Are the officers towing? And vehicle inspections, are they occurring at the time? And this person, I think it must be police. We have some vehicles that are in excess of 2,000 horsepower on the street.
Yeah. So that simply falls to, again, the rules and regulations under Highway Traffic Act. If the modifications are illegal, then we deal with them that way. Are they towed and are they inspected? They certainly can be, depending on the situation. And if that's available to us at the time, based on what's occurring, it certainly does happen. But it's not always the case that we have those grounds or those authorities to do so. It just depends on. There's a lot of circumstances around when you can lay a charge and when you can tow. That's two different things, right? So charges can be laid in some cases, but you don't have the authority to tow. And in other cases, depending on what's occurring at the time, right? How do you know that they're modified that much? Is it because of the behaviors? And now you're further into an investigation based on the behaviors. So now you're down a criminal route already. Then you have more teeth to, further investigation. So if it's HTA, probably less from an investigation towing aspect, but not always the case. So it's not a simple yes or no.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some nuances to it. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think we're at the end of our time. And obviously there's been a lot of engagement from the participants, and it's great to have that much time that we can hear from them and get their questions, and this has been very insightful. So I did already post Todd's email. It was in with the publicity to do with the webinar. So if you want to reach out to him individually with any further questions, and we will post those stats that he mentioned with the webinar recording. We'll do that in the next little while. Once again, just a reminder to please complete the post-webinar survey. It'll pop up automatically. You have a chance to win a $25 Tim's gift card. And also just to keep checking back all our new topics that we have coming up. And once again, thank you so much, Todd. Excellent presentation, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Take care.
Thank you.